You are 15 years old, and you are about to die. Snow crunches under your boots as you run through the dark Norwegian forest. Behind you, voices shout in a language that means death. Danish soldiers. They killed your brother 3 hours ago, the greatest king Norway ever knew, dead in a muddy field. But you don't know it yet. You don't know that running through this freezing forest will lead you to become one of the richest men alive. You don't know that in 15 years you'll command armies that shake the world. You don't know that people will whisper your name from Ireland to Jerusalem. Right now you just know one thing: keep running or die. Your name is Harald, and this is the night everything changes. Welcome, brave soul. Tonight we're going to live history together. Drop a comment below. Niece, where are you listening from tonight? We're a small community who believe ancient stories help us sleep deeper. If this Viking journey gives you the rest you're searching for, a simple like helps us reach others lying awake at 2 a.m. And if you'd like to join our little family of peaceful sleepers, that subscribe button would mean the world to us. Tonight's story follows a teenage boy who loses everything in one terrible battle. But instead of giving up, he runs so far from home that he ends up in the most beautiful city on earth, where Viking warriors become generals and gather treasure beyond imagination. We'll start in that dark forest where everything went wrong. We'll sail down Russian rivers. We'll walk through the golden gates of Constantinople. By the end, you'll understand how one bad night led to the greatest adventure in Viking history. So get comfortable, pull those covers up, and let's follow young Harald as he runs toward his destiny, and as you drift toward the peaceful sleep you deserve. The battle ended 3 hours ago, but you can still hear it echoing in your head. You were supposed to stay back with supplies. You were 15, after all. Too young for the front lines, your brother said. King Olaf, the holy, your own half-brother, wanted you safe. But you saw everything anyway. You saw the Danish axes cutting down Norwegian shields. You saw your brother fall with a spear through his chest. You saw the greatest army Norway ever gathered break apart like ice in spring. Now you're running through trees so thick you can barely see the stars. Your breath makes white clouds in the freezing air. Every few minutes you stop and listen. Are those footsteps behind you? Or just your heart pounding so hard it sounds like drums? The Danes want every member of your family dead. They've been very clear about that. Your brother claimed to be Norway's rightful king, sent by God himself. The Danes disagreed with axes. You stumble over a root and catch yourself against a pine tree. The bark feels rough and real under your hand. More real than anything that happened today. This morning you were a prince. Tonight you're a refugee. But here's what you don't know yet. Here's the secret that history will reveal. This terrible night, the worst night of your life, is actually setting you free. Free to become something bigger than a Norwegian prince. Free to see things no Viking ever imagined. Free to gather wealth that would make kings jealous. You just have to survive until morning. Behind you a branch snaps. You freeze. Is that wind or footsteps? You don't wait to find out. You run deeper into the forest, toward a future you can't even dream of yet. Dawn comes slowly through the trees, painting everything grey and cold. You've been walking for hours now. No more running mine. You haven't heard voices since midnight. Your legs ache. Your stomach growls. When did you last eat? Yesterday feels like another lifetime. Then you smell smoke. Not a big fire. Not a military camp. Something small and hidden. You creep toward it, moving from tree to tree like your brother taught you during hunting trips. Back when hunting was fun instead of survival. There mines a tiny clearing. A small fire. And around it, 3 men who definitely aren't Danish soldiers. They look like farmers, but their eyes are too sharp. They look like merchants, but their hands have sword calluses. One of them sees you watching and whistles softly. "Come out, boy," he says in Norwegian. "We know you're there." You step into the clearing, ready to run again. But the oldest man's grey beard, kind eyes, just nods toward the fire. "You're one of Olaf's family," he says. "It's not a question. We saw you at the battle. Bad business, that." The second man, younger with scars on his arms, pokes the fire with a stick. "Danes are still looking, asking questions in every village between here and the sea." You sit down near the warmth, but keep your legs ready to move. "Who are you?" The grey-bearded man smiles. "Friends, the kind who know when it's time to leave Norway for a while." He pulls out bread and dried meat. Real food. Your mouth waters. "The kind who have a boat." "Where does the boat go?" you ask. The third man, silent until now, looks up from sharpening a knife. His accent sounds different. "Eastern, Russia," he says. "Down rivers most people never heard of. To cities where gold grows on trees." The grey-bearded man laughs. "Well, not exactly on trees, but close enough." He tears off a piece of bread and hands it to you. "The question is, boy, you want to stay here and hide from Danes forever, or you want to see what else the world has to offer?" You take the bread. It tastes better than any feast you ever had in your brother's hall. But you don't know, you can't know, that this simple choice will lead you to places more wonderful than any saga ever described. You don't know that saying yes will make you richer than Norwegian kings. You don't know that these rough-looking men are your first step toward commanding the armies of the mightiest empire on earth. You just know the bread is warm, the fire feels good, and staying in Norway means death. "When do we leave?" you ask. 2 days later, you're floating down a river you've never heard of, watching Norway disappear behind you forever. The boat is bigger than it looked on shore, long and wide, built for carrying cargo down Russian rivers. Furs are stacked everywhere, mice, fox and beaver, and something called sable that's softer than anything you've ever touched. The grey-bearded man, who calls himself Bjorn, explains how this works. "We trade furs south," he says, steering around rocks in the water. "Russians want furs. Further south, Greeks want furs. Even further south, people in silk robes want furs. Amazing how much gold people will pay for dead animals." You're learning that Bjorn and his men aren't just fur traders, they're part of something bigger. A network of Northmen who know the secret paths between the cold lands and the warm lands. Men who've seen things that would sound like lies if they told them in Norwegian drinking halls. The scarred man, Ulf, sits next to you as you watch endless forests slide by. "First time away from home?" he asks. You nod. "Everything looks different here. The trees, the birds, even the way the light hits the water. This is definitely not Norway." "I was about your age when I first took this trip," Ulf says. "Thought I knew what the world looked like. Thought Norway was the whole world, basically." He laughs. "Boy, was I wrong." "How wrong?" you ask. Ulf points south, down the river. "See, we're going to hit trading posts. Russian towns where they speak a different language and eat different food. That'll seem strange at first. Then we'll hit bigger towns. Then cities that'll make your eyes hurt, they're so beautiful." The third man, the quiet one with the Eastern accent, looks up from his work. His name is Alexios, and you've figured out he's not quite like the others. "Tell him about the city, Ulf." "What city?" you ask. Bjorn and Ulf exchange looks. Alexios just smiles. "Well," Bjorn says slowly, "there's this place, south of here, way south, where this river connects to other rivers, and those connect to a sea, and across that sea. There's a city," Ulf finishes, "where the buildings are covered in gold, where the ruler lives in a palace with 1,000 rooms, where warriors from all over the world come to serve in the greatest army ever created." You think they're joking. They have to be joking. Alexios stops working and looks directly at you. "That's where we're taking you, Harald. To Constantinople, to the city of gold, to serve the Roman Emperor." Roman Emperor. Romans were ancient history, everyone knew that. But Alexios isn't laughing, neither is anyone else. And somewhere deep in your stomach, you feel something new. Not fear, you've had enough fear for one lifetime. Something else. Something that feels like excitement. 3 weeks into the journey, you realize you've entered a different world entirely. The forests gave way to grasslands. The grasslands gave way to towns with wooden walls and strange-shaped churches. People here speak Russian, which sounds like music played backwards. They wear different clothes, eat different food, and worship in ways that would puzzle Norwegian priests. But here's the amazing part. Bjorn and his men fit right in. They know the language. They know which towns are friendly and which ones ask too many questions. They know exactly where to sell what furs for the best prices. How long have you been doing this? You ask Bjorn as you watch him bargain with a Russian merchant who has more gold teeth than real ones. 20 years, Bjorn says without taking his eyes off the negotiation. Started when I was not much older than you. I need to get out of Norway fast. Why? Bjorn grins. Different king, same problem. Turns out kings don't like it when you disagree with them. He says something in Russian to the merchant, who laughs and nods. But that's how I learned about the rivers, about the road south, about opportunities for young men with strong backs and sharp minds. The Russian merchant counts out silver coins, more silver than you've ever seen in one place. Bjorn scoops them into a leather bag like they're ordinary rocks. Is that a lot of money? You ask. Ulf, loading new supplies into the boat, overhears and nearly drops a sack of grain. A lot? Boy, that's more than most Norwegian farmers see in their whole lives. And it's nothing compared to what we'll see in Constantinople. Alexios joins the conversation. He's been teaching you Greek words during the journey. Useful words like water and food. And I'm not a spy. Harald, he says, what do you think Viking raiders dream about? When they attack monasteries and towns, what are they hoping to find? Gold? You guess. Right. Gold, silver, treasure. Alexios points to Bjorn's bag of coins. In Constantinople, what we just earned from one day of fur trading, that's what the servants spend on lunch. You think he's exaggerating. You really hope he's exaggerating, because if he's not, how much further, you ask? Bjorn looks south, where the river bends around hills you can't see over. 2 months, maybe 3, depending on weather and politics. He hefts the bag of silver. But don't worry about time, boy. Worry about getting ready. Ready for what? All 3 men look at you with expressions you can't quite read. Excitement, worry, something else. Ready, Alexios says quietly, to see something that'll change how you think about everything. Ready to understand that the world is so much bigger and stranger, and more wonderful than any of us imagined. The boat rocks gently as you push off from the trading post. Behind you, the Russian merchant waves goodbye. Ahead of you, the river flows toward mysteries you can't even guess at. You're not a Norwegian prince anymore. You're not even sure what you are, but you're about to find out. 6 weeks later, you see your first Byzantine coin, and your understanding of wealth changes forever. You're at a trading post that's bigger than most Norwegian towns. Built where 3 rivers meet, it's full of merchants from places you've never heard of. Bulgars and Khazars, and people who speak languages that sound like singing. Alexios buys supplies while you watch the crowd. That's when you see her minute, a Byzantine merchant woman, counting out payment for a cartload of amber. The coins she's using catch the light like tiny suns. Alexios, you whisper, what are those? He glances over and smiles. Byzantine gold pieces, solid gold, each one worth more than everything in that Russian's entire shop. He pauses, want to see one? You nod, trying not to look too eager. Alexios walks over to the merchant woman and says something in Greek. She looks at you, laughs, and hands him one of the coins. He brings it back. Hold this, he says. The coin is heavier than you expected. The gold feels warm and soft, like it's alive. On one side there's a picture of a man wearing a crown that looks like it's made of stars. On the other side, Symbols you can't read, but that look important. That man, Alexios says, pointing to the crowned figure, is the emperor, the ruler of the Roman Empire that never died. The most powerful person on earth. How powerful, you ask, still staring at the coin. Alexios sits down next to you on a pile of furs. Harald in Norway, what's the richest thing you've ever seen? You think, my brother's golden arm ring. He said it was worth 10 farms. 10 farms. Alexios nods thoughtfully. In Constantinople, the emperor has a dining room where the walls are covered with gold, the entire walls. And that's just one room in a palace with over 1,000 rooms. You look at the coin again, one coin, worth more than a whole shop full of goods, and there are thousands more just like it, in the merchant woman's pouches. Where does it all come from, you ask? Trade, Byzantium says, joining the conversation. Constantinople sits right where Europe meets Asia. Every merchant traveling between the Western world and the Eastern world has to pass through Byzantine territory. The emperor gets a cut of everything. Everything. Silk from China, spices from India, silver from Spain, furs from us. Byzantium grins. It all flows through Constantinople like water through a funnel, and some of it sticks. Ulf comes back from haggling with a grain merchant. Show him the other thing, Alexios. Alexios reaches into his pack and pulls out something wrapped in silk. He unwraps it carefully. It's a small piece of fabric, but fabric like nothing you've ever seen. It seems to glow with its own light. Purple and gold threads woven together in patterns that make your eyes water. Byzantine silk, Alexios says. This piece, just this little piece, is worth more than our entire boat and everything in it. You touch it gently. It's softer than water, smoother than ice. Who wears something like this? Emperors, empresses, maybe a few of the wealthiest nobles in the world. Alexios wraps it up again, but here's the thing, Harald. In Constantinople, there are shops that sell nothing but silk like this. Streets where every building is full of treasures that would make kings weep with envy. The merchant woman finishes her business and walks past your group. She nods politely to Alexios and says something in Greek. What did she say, you ask? Alexios translates. She said we should hurry. The sailing season ends soon, and we don't want to spend winter on the road. You hand back the gold coin, but your fingers remember its weight. How much further to this city? Byzantium looks at the sky, calculating. If we push hard and the weather holds, 6 weeks, maybe 7. 6 weeks. After all this traveling, all this build-up, all these hints about impossible wealth and power, you're about to see if the stories are true. The Black Sea doesn't look black at all. You're standing on the deck of a different boat now. A proper sailing ship instead of a river boat. Greek sailors who've been making this run for years. The water stretches to the horizon, dark blue under morning sunlight. First time seeing the sea? Asks Captain Theodoros, a weathered man with grey hair and laugh lines around his eyes. You nod. In Norway you lived inland. The closest you'd gotten to the real ocean was stories. She's beautiful, isn't she? Theodoros says. But dangerous. Storms come up fast out here. Pirates sometimes. Ships that leave port and never come back. That should worry you, but it doesn't. After everything you've been through, the battle, the escape, months of river travel through foreign lands, the sea feels like freedom, like the last barrier between your old life and whatever comes next. Alexios joins you at the rail. Over the months of travel, he's become more than a guide, almost like an older brother. Harald, we need to talk about what happens when we reach the city. What do you mean? I mean, you can't just walk up to the imperial palace and say, hello, I'd like to join your army. Alexios looks serious. Constantinople is huge, maybe 500,000 people. More people than live in all of Norway put together. 500,000 people. The number is so big you can't really picture it. The good news, Alexios continues, is that the emperor needs soldiers, always needs soldiers. The empire is vast, from Italy to Syria, from the Danube River to Egypt, enemies everywhere. rebellions, invasions. The army is constantly recruiting. What's the bad news? Alexios smiles grimly. The bad news is that thousands of young men show up every year wanting to join. Most of them get assigned to regular units. They spend their careers guarding supply wagons and getting killed in small border wars no one remembers. You watch seabirds dive for fish, thinking, but not everyone. No, not everyone. Alexios leans against the rail. The best soldiers, the smartest, toughest, most reliable, get invited to join something special. What? The Varangian Guard, the Emperor's personal bodyguards. All foreigners, mostly men from the north, like us. They take an oath to protect the Emperor with their lives. In return, Alexios pauses dramatically. In return, they get paid in gold. They live in the palace. They eat food that costs more than most people make in a year. And when their service is done, they go home rich enough to buy kingdoms. The ship rocks gently on the swells. You taste salt on your lips. How do you get invited, you ask? You prove yourself. Show courage. Show loyalty. Show that you're smart enough to tell friend from enemy in a city full of spies and politicians. Alexios studies your face. Think you can do that? Before you can answer, Captain Theodorus calls out from the wheel. There, look south. You turn and look where he's pointing. At first you don't see anything special, just more water, more horizon. Then your eyes adjust, and you see it. A thin line of white on the horizon. Buildings, walls. What is that, you ask? Alexios grins. That, my young friend, is Constantinople. The city of gold. The center of the world. The thin line grows thicker as you watch. Taller, more detailed. You're about to see if all the stories were true. Nothing prepared you for this. You've been traveling for 4 months. You've seen Russian cities and Bulgarian ports and Byzantine trading posts. You thought you understood what civilization meant. You were wrong. Constantinople rises from the water like something from a dream. Walls higher than mountains. Towers that seem to scrape the sky, and everywhere, the glint of gold catching sunlight. Close your mouth, boy, All says with a laugh. You look like a fish, but you can't close your mouth. You can't stop staring. The city stretches along the coastline further than you can see. Ships crowd the harbor, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Ships from Italy and Egypt, and places whose names you don't know. How many people live there, you ask? About 500,000, Alexios says. Maybe more, 500,000. In Norway, a gathering of 100 people was a crowd. Captain Theodorus guides the ship toward a massive harbor complex, docks and warehouses, and official-looking buildings with red tile roofs. Everything is bigger than it needs to be, like the people who built it wanted to make sure no one could miss the point. See those walls? Alexios points to the fortifications protecting the city. They've stood for 800 years, survived attacks by Persians, Arabs, Bulgars, Russians, never been breached. The walls look impossible, thick as houses, tall as cliffs, stretching from the sea to the inland hills. You count 3 layers of defenses, each one bigger than anything Norway ever built. But it's not the walls that steal your breath, it's the buildings inside them. Domes covered in gold, towers reaching toward heaven, windows that sparkle like jewels. This isn't just a city, it's a statement, a message written in marble and gold that says, we are the heirs of Rome, we are the center of the world, we are eternal. First-timers always react like this. Captain Theodorus says kindly, don't worry, after a few weeks you'll get used to it. You doubt that? You seriously doubt that? The ship docks at a pier made of stones fitted together so perfectly you can barely see the joints. Officials in silk robes come aboard to check cargo and passengers. They speak to Alexios in rapid Greek, examining papers and asking questions. One of them looks at you and asks something. He wants to know your business in the city. Alexios translates. Tell him. You start then stop. What is your business? You're a refugee Norwegian prince with no money, no connections, and no real plan beyond don't get killed. Alexios saves you. He speaks to the official in Greek, shows him some kind of document, and hands over a small bag that jingles with coins. The official nods, stamps something, and waves you through. What did you tell him? You ask as you walk down the gangplank. That you're a young warrior from the north, seeking to serve the emperor. It's true enough. Your feet touch Byzantine soil for the first time. The stones of the dock are worn smooth by centuries of use. Every step you take has been taken by thousands of merchants, soldiers, pilgrims, and adventurers before you. Welcome to Constantinople, Alexios says. Welcome to the beginning of your real life. Above you the golden domes catch the afternoon sun and throw light back like beacons. Somewhere beyond those walls, in a palace more magnificent than saga dreams, sits the most powerful ruler on earth. You're about to find out if a Norwegian farm boy has what it takes to join his guard. But you don't know, you can't possibly know yet, that within 3 years you'll be standing in that palace as a trusted general. You don't know that the emperor himself will know your name. You don't know that the wealth you'll accumulate will make you the richest Northman who ever lived. Right now you just know that everything familiar is behind you, and everything impossible is ahead. The real adventure is about to begin. Walking through Constantinople is like walking through a fever dream made of marble and gold. Alexios leads you through streets wider than Norwegian rivers. The buildings tower above you. Mitre 3 stories, 4 stories, some so tall you have to crane your neck to see the tops. Everything is made of stone that's been cut and polished until it gleams. Stay close, Alexios warns. It's easy to get lost here. Easy is an understatement. Every street leads to 3 more streets. Every plaza opens onto squares you didn't know existed. Signs hang from buildings in Greek letters you can't read, advertising goods you can't identify, and the people, you've never seen so many different kinds of humans in one place. Merchants in silk robes, arguing in languages you don't recognize. Soldiers in armor that reflects light like mirrors. Priests in black robes chanting as they walk. Women wearing jewelry that sparkles with gems you didn't know existed. Where's everyone going? You ask, trying to avoid being trampled by a man carrying a basket of fish that smell like they came from paradise. Business, Alexios says. Always business. Constantinople never sleeps. Too much money being made. You pass a shop that sells nothing but spices. The smells hit you like a physical force. Cinnamon and pepper and things that make your mouth water and your eyes tear up. The shop next door sells silk fabric in colors you don't have names for. The shop after that sells books with covers made of gold. Books with golden covers. Just sitting there like it's normal. Who buys this stuff, you ask? Rich people, Alexios says. And in Constantinople there are a lot of rich people. You turn a corner and suddenly find yourself in a square dominated by the biggest building you've ever seen. It's round, with a dome that seems to float in the air without any visible support. People stream in and out of massive doors. What is that, you ask? Hagia Sophia, Alexios says. The great church, biggest church in the world. Biggest church in the world. Of course it is. Can we go inside? Alexios checks the position of the sun. Quickly, we need to reach the recruiting office before they close. You walk through doors that are taller than most Norwegian buildings. Inside you forget how to breathe. The ceiling soars impossibly high above you. Light pours down from windows you can't see, making the air itself seem to glow. The walls are covered with pictures made of tiny colored stones, pictures of saints and angels that look so real you expect them to start moving. And everywhere gold, gold leaf on the walls. Golden ornaments hanging from the ceiling, golden crosses and golden lamps and golden decorations that catch the light and throw it back in patterns that hurt your eyes. How you start, then stop. There aren't any words. It took them 5 years to build, Alexios says quietly. cost more than most kingdoms have ever seen. A priest walks by, swinging a container that gives off sweet-smelling smoke. His robes are embroidered with gold thread in patterns so complex they make you dizzy. The emperor worships here, Alexios continues. Every major ceremony, every important celebration, when foreign ambassadors come to negotiate, this is one of the first places they're brought. Why? Alexios smiles. To show them what they're dealing with. To make it clear that this isn't some barbarian kingdom they can push around. He touches your shoulder, to make them understand that the Byzantine Empire has resources beyond imagination. You walk slowly through the church, trying to take it all in. Other visitors move around you, some kneeling in prayer, others just staring in wonder like you. Near the altar, you see something that makes you stop completely. It's a book. But not just any book. This book is bound in gold and silver, with gems embedded in the cover. Each page you can see is decorated with paintings so detailed they look like windows into heaven. That, Alexios says, following your gaze, is worth more than entire Norwegian towns. A book, worth more than towns. We should go, Alexios says gently. The recruiting office closes at sunset. You follow him back outside, but keep looking over your shoulder at the Golden Dome. In the street, normal life continues. Merchants selling, customers buying, children playing games that involve a lot of shouting. Normal life, in the most abnormal place on earth. Alexios, you say as you walk toward whatever comes next. How does anyone ever get used to this? He laughs. Honestly, most people don't. They just learn to pretend it's normal until they start believing it themselves. You look around at the impossible wealth, the casual magnificence, the everyday miracles of Byzantine civilization. I don't think I want to get used to it, you say. Good, Alexios replies. The moment you stop being amazed is the moment you start taking it for granted. And people who take Constantinople for granted don't last long here. Ahead of you, the street leads toward a building with official-looking guards standing outside. Your stomach flutters with nervousness. Time to find out if the Byzantine Empire has a place for a Norwegian refugee. The recruiting officer looks like he could break you in half without trying. He's huge, even by Norwegian standards. Shoulders like an ox, arms thick as tree trunks, scars covering every visible piece of skin. A long white scar runs from his left ear to his jaw, the kind of mark you get from surviving something that should have killed you. When he speaks, it's in Greek, accented by something northern man's, maybe Swedish, maybe Danish. But there's something else in his voice. Authority, the kind that comes from years of making life and death decisions. Another one, he says to Alexios, then switches to something closer to Norse. His eyes never leave you. How old? 16, Alexios answers. You're actually 15, but this doesn't seem like the time to be precise about details. The officer walks around you like you're a horse. He's thinking about buying. His boots make no sound on the stone floor. A big man who's learned to move quietly. Dangerous combination. Name? Harald Sigurdsson, you say, trying to keep your voice steady. Sigurdsson. He stops in front of you. From Norway. You nod. What part of Norway? The inland valleys, near Ringerike. His eyebrows raise slightly. Ringerike. Good fighting men from there. Does your family serve King Olaf? Your stomach clenches. This is dangerous territory. My brother did. Your brother. The officer's eyes narrow. What happened to your brother? You feel Alexios tense beside you. This could go very wrong very quickly. In the Byzantine Empire, backing the wrong side in someone else's civil war could be seen as problematic. But lying to this man seems even more dangerous than telling the truth. He died at Stiklestad, you say quietly, fighting for what he believed was right. Silence. Long, measuring silence. The officer studies your face like he's reading a map. Stiklestad, he repeats. Heard about that. Bad business. He pauses. Your brother. He was King Olaf. Your heart stops. If you admit to being the brother of a failed king, will they see you as nobility worth recruiting, or as a potential threat to be eliminated? Yes, you say. More silence. Then unexpectedly, the officer nods with something that might be respectful. Olaf was a fool, he says bluntly. But a brave fool. It takes courage to fight for a lost cause. He looks directly into your eyes. The question is, did you inherit his courage, or just his bad judgment? Before you can answer, he walks over to a weapons rack and selects a wooden practice sword. The blade is scarred from thousands of training sessions, the handle worn smooth by countless hands. Ever fight anyone who isn't Norwegian? He asks, tossing you the sword. You catch it, heavier than you expected, but the balance feels right. No. Good. Means you don't have bad habits to unlearn. He picks up a practice sword for himself. I'm going to attack you. You try not to die. Simple enough. Your mouth goes dry. Around the training yard, other recruits have stopped their own exercises to watch. Some look excited. Fresh entertainment. Others look sympathetic. They remember their own first tests. One more thing, the officer says casually. My name is Magnus Thorsen. I've been training Byzantine soldiers for 12 years. In that time, I've seen farm boys become generals and princes become corpses. He raises his sword. Let's see which one you are. Begin. He comes at you fast. Faster than someone his size should be able to move. You barely get your sword up in time to block his first strike. The impact sends shock waves up your arms and makes your teeth rattle. He doesn't pause, doesn't give you time to recover or think. Second strike, aimed at your ribs. You dodge backward, almost trip over your own feet. Recover just in time to block a third attack that would have caved in your skull. But here's the thing, and this surprises you as much as anyone, you're not completely helpless. Months of travel have changed you in ways you didn't realize. River work made your arms stronger. Sleeping rough makes you tougher. Constant alertness during the journey sharpened your reflexes. Hours of practice with Bjorn and Ulf during quiet evenings taught you things Norwegian princes don't usually learn. You catch his rhythm, block, dodge, look for openings. You're not winning. He's clearly holding back, testing rather than trying to destroy you. But you're not embarrassing yourself either. And something else happens, something unexpected. You start to enjoy it. This isn't like the chaos of real battle, where everything happens too fast, and people die for stupid reasons. This is pure, clean, just skill against skill, strength against strength, will against will. Magnus notices the change. You see it in his eyes. The moment when he realizes you've stopped being afraid and started fighting. Better. He grunts, pressing his attack harder. You give ground, but in control now, letting him push you back while you look for your chance. Thereof, he overextends slightly on a downward strike. You step inside his reach and bring your sword up in an arc that would, with real steel, open him from hip to shoulder. He stops your blade an inch from his ribs with his free hand. Enough, he says. You lower your sword, breathing hard. He's not even winded, but there's something new in his expression. Interest, maybe, or calculation. Not terrible, he says. Raw but not terrible. You have some natural ability. Thank you. You manage between breaths. That wasn't a compliment, but his tone suggests it might have been. A little. Natural ability without training gets you killed. But trainable, that's what matters. He walks over to a table covered with papers and makes some notes. His handwriting is neat, precise. The script of an educated man, not just a soldier. Standard terms, he says, without looking up. 5-year commitment. Regular army to start. Infantry, probably. If you show promise, maybe specialist units later. You watch him write, thinking about everything that led to this moment. The battle, the escape, the long journey, all of it leading to this becoming a common foot soldier in someone else's army. It should feel like enough. It should feel like victory. It doesn't. What about the Varangian Guard, you ask? Magnus stops writing. Look up slowly. Around the training yard, conversations stop. Other recruits turn to stare. What about them? His voice has gone very quiet. I heard they recruit from the regular army. They do. After several years of service, after proving loyalty and skill in actual combat, after recommendation from officers who trust you with their lives. His eyes narrow. Why? Think you're special? The smart answer is no. The safe answer is no. The answer that won't get you in trouble is no. But you didn't travel 4 months, leave everything behind, and survive this long to be safe. I think you say carefully that I came here to serve the Emperor, not to guard supply wagons. Silence. Long dangerous silence. You can feel Alexios tensing beside you, probably wondering if he should start planning your funeral. Then Magnus laughs. Actually laughs. Head thrown back, loud enough to make birds take flight from the nearby roofs. Gods above and below, he says, wiping his eyes. Another one who thinks he's destined for glory. He looks at you with something between amusement and respect. Boy, do you know how many young warriors come through here every year thinking they're going to join the guard? No, hundreds, maybe thousands from all over the world. Norsemen, Anglo-Saxons, Rus, Bulgars, all of them are convinced they're the hero of their own saga. He pauses. You know how many actually make it? No, maybe 5. In a good year. The numbers should discourage you, should make you reconsider. Aim lower. Be realistic about your prospects in this vast, complex empire. Instead, they make you more determined. I understand, you say. Do you? Magnus studies your face like he's trying to read your soul. The Varangian Guard isn't just about fighting, boy. They're the Emperor's inner circle. They know state secrets that could topple kingdoms. They stand at his side during ceremonies that shape the fate of millions. They're trusted with wealth that could buy armies. He steps closer. Close enough that you can see old battle scars on his hands. Smell the leather and steel scent that clings to career soldiers. More than that, he continues. They're foreigners in a court full of Byzantine nobles, who've been playing political games since before your grandfather was born. One mistake, one wrong word, one misunderstood gesture, and you don't just lose your position, you lose your life. The weight of what he's saying settles on you. This isn't just about becoming a better warrior. It's about surviving in a world where words can be deadlier than swords. Still interested? Magnus asks. You think about your brother dying for his beliefs in a muddy Norwegian field. You think about the alternative, going back north eventually, settling down, becoming the kind of man who tells stories about adventures instead of living them. Yes, you say. Magnus nods slowly. Then here's what happens. You start with regular training. You learn to fight the Byzantine way, not the Norwegian way. You learn Greek, real Greek, not the travel phrases Alexios taught you. You learn to read and write. Read and write. Guardsmen who can't read documents are useless in the palace. Might as well train dogs. He makes another note on his papers. If you survive basic training without disgracing yourself, I'll consider recommending you for advanced instruction. No promises. He hands you a wooden token with numbers carved into it. Barracks 7, Bunk 23. Report to Sergeant Basil at dawn. He'll explain the rules. You take the token. It's warm from his hand, solid and real. Proof that this is actually happening. One more thing, Magnus says, as you turn to leave. That thing you did, stepping inside my reach for the counterattack. Good instinct. But next time, follow through faster. In real combat, hesitation kills. Outside the recruiting office, Alexios grins at you like you've just pulled off a miracle. Well, he says, that went better than expected. Did it? Magnus doesn't usually laugh during recruitment tests. Usually doesn't give tactical advice either. Alexios claps you on the shoulder. I think you impressed him. You look back at the building where your new life just began. Through the windows you can see Magnus talking to other officers, occasionally gesturing in your direction. What happens now? You ask. Now, Alexios says, the real work begins. But what you don't know, what you can't possibly know yet, is that Magnus Thorsen just made a decision that will change the course of your life. Tonight he'll send a message to someone very important, recommending that they keep an eye on the young Norwegian who dared to ask about the Varangian Guard. That message will eventually reach the desk of the captain of the guard himself. And that's when things will start to get very interesting indeed. Dawn in Constantinople sounds different from dawn anywhere else in the world. You wake to the sound of 10,000 people starting their day at once, merchants calling out prices, carts rumbling over stone streets, ships' horns echoing across the harbour, church bells ringing from a dozen different directions, each one slightly out of rhythm with the others. But the sound that gets you moving is the one right next to your ear. Up, up. The Emperor doesn't pay you to dream about home. Sergeant Basil's voice could wake the dead. He's not particularly big, maybe average height, lean build, but he has the kind of presence that makes you jump to attention without thinking. Around you, 20 other new recruits scramble out of their bunks. The barracks is a long stone building with rows of beds, each one barely wide enough for a grown man. Your neighbours include a red-haired giant from Ireland, twin brothers from Denmark who finish each other's sentences, and a dark-skinned man from somewhere in Africa who speaks Greek with an accent you can't place. You have exactly 10 minutes to wash, dress and form up outside. Basil continues. Anyone who's late gets to spend the day practicing sword work while carrying a full pack. Anyone who's really late gets to do it without breakfast. The scramble begins. The washing facilities are communal, stone basins with cold water that makes you gasp when it hits your skin. Back home, you would have called this torture. Here, it's just Tuesday. The red-haired Irishman, who introduced himself as Con the night before, splashes water on his face and grins at you. Beautiful morning, isn't it? Nothing like freezing water to remind you you're still alive. You're insane, mutters one of the Danish twins. You think it's Eric, but they're identical enough that you might be wrong. Insane keeps you moving, Con replies cheerfully. Moving keeps you from thinking too hard about what you've gotten yourself into. You pull on the training clothes they issued you yesterday. Rough wool tunic, leather boots, belt with wooden practice weapons. Everything is built for durability rather than comfort. Everything smells like sweat and iron and determination. Outside, Sergeant Basil waits with the kind of patience that suggests he could stand there all day if necessary. When the last recruit stumbles into formation, he nods once. Better, still terrible, but better. He walks along the line, examining each of you like a farmer checking livestock. Today you begin learning what it means to be Byzantine soldiers. Forget everything you think you know about fighting. Forget your tribal customs. Forget whatever glorious nonsense brought you here. He stops in front of the African recruit, whose name is Con Nanaz, taken from the imperial family he serves. Apparently a common practice for foreign soldiers. You, where are you from? Axum, Sergeant. Kingdom of Axum. How did warriors fight in Axum? With spears, Sergeant. Long spears in formation, shields locked together. And it worked? Yes, Sergeant. We never lost a battle using those tactics. Basil nods. Good. Forget all of it. Con Nanaz blinks. Sergeant, the Byzantine Empire has been conquering kingdoms like yours for 800 years. We've seen every tactic, every weapon, every strategy that local armies can devise. Basil continues down the line. You're not here to fight the way your fathers fought. You're here to fight the way Romans fight. He stops in front of you. Norwegian. Your people raid monasteries, yes. Hit fast. Grab treasure. Run away. Some do, Sergeant. And it works? You think about the Danish invasion that killed your brother. Sometimes. Here's why it works. Because you're fighting farmers and priests who've never seen real combat. Basil's voice carries no insult, just fact. But you're not farmers anymore. You're going to learn to fight armies. Professional armies led by generals who've studied war their entire lives. The morning training begins with something called formation drill. It sounds simple. It's not. Lock shields, Basil commands. 20 shields come together with a sound like thunder, or try to. Half the recruits are too slow, others too fast. Gaps appear where there should be solid walls of bronze and wood. Again, you slam your shield against Con's, feel Eric's shield lock against yours on the other side. The formation holds for maybe 3 seconds before someone shifts weight, and the whole line wavers. Again, for 2 hours you practice nothing but standing together, shield wall formation, moving as one unit, turning without breaking the line. It's harder than any single combat you've ever attempted. Your shield arm burns, your legs shake from holding position, sweat pours down your back despite the cool morning air. But something interesting happens around the 3rd hour. Something clicks. You stop thinking about your shield and start feeling Con's shield against yours. You stop watching Eric and start sensing his movements. The 20 separate recruits start becoming something else. Something unified. Better, Basil grudgingly admits. Much better. You're starting to understand. Understand what, Sergeant? Asks one of the Danes. That Byzantine warfare isn't about heroes, it's about the system. It's about 20 men who trust each other more than they trust themselves. Basil walks behind the formation, checking alignment. Individual courage gets you killed. Collective discipline wins wars. The morning continues with sword work, but not the kind you're used to. Norwegian boy, Basil calls. Show me how you were taught to fight. You step forward, wooden sword ready. Without thinking you fall into the stance your brother's weapon master taught you. Side on, sword held high, ready to deliver crushing overhead blows. Stop. Basil shakes his head. See the problem? You're fighting like you expect to face one enemy. Like this is some saga story about heroes dueling at the edge of the world. He moves you into a different position, square to the front, sword held lower. Shield position to protect not just yourself but the man next to you. Byzantine soldiers fight in formation, always in formation. Your job isn't to kill as many enemies as possible. Your job is to keep the line intact while the formation kills the enemy. It's a completely different way of thinking about combat. Instead of individual glory, collective survival. Instead of heroic charges, disciplined advance. But what about the Varangian Guard? You ask during a brief water break. Don't they fight as individuals? Basil gives you a look that's equal parts amusement and warning. Heard you mention the guard to Magnus yesterday. Word travels fast in this army. Around you, other recruits lean in to listen. Apparently you're not the only one curious about the Emperor's elite bodyguards. The Varangian Guard, Basil says slowly, fight however the situation requires. Sometimes in formation, sometimes alone, sometimes with weapons you've never heard of, using tactics that would sound like madness if I described them. He pauses, but they can do that because they've mastered the basics first. Discipline, teamwork, absolute reliability. How long does basic training last? Con asks. 6 months, if you survive it without washing out or getting yourself killed. Basil's expression suggests that both options are real possibilities. After that, those who show promise get specialized training, advanced weapons, urban combat, palace security procedures, and the Guard. The Guard recruits from specialists who've proven themselves in real combat, not training. Real fighting against real enemies who really want to kill you. Basil looks directly at you, still interested. You think about Magnus's warning yesterday, about the thousands who try, and the handful who succeed, about the risks and the rewards and the sheer audacity of thinking you could join the most elite military unit in the known world. Yes, Sergeant. Basil nods. Then stop talking and start learning. The afternoon is for weapons practice. Tomorrow we add mounted combat. Next week, siege warfare. He grins, and for a moment he looks less like a stern instructor and more like someone who genuinely enjoys his work. By the time we're done with you, you'll be able to fight anyone, anywhere, under any conditions. The afternoon sun climbs higher as training continues. Sword work gives way to spear drill, which gives way to archery practice. Your body aches in places you didn't know could ache. But something else is happening. Something unexpected. You're starting to feel like you belong here. Not just in the training yard, but but in Constantinople itself, in this vast impossible empire that recruits farm boys from the edge of the world and turns them into something greater than they ever imagined they could be. During the evening meal, bread and stew that tastes better than anything you ate during the long journey south, Con asks the question everyone's thinking: think any of us will actually make it? To the specialized units, I mean. Eric and his twin brother exchange looks. Con Nanos stares into his bowl like it contains answers. Other conversations around the long wooden table gradually stop as everyone waits for someone to voice what they're all wondering. Some of us will, you say finally. Maybe not all, but some. How can you be sure? One of the Danes asks. You think about the recruiting officer's laughter yesterday, about Sergeant Basil's grudging approval, about the way Magnus Torsen looked at you after that practice bout months like he was seeing something worth investing in, because they wouldn't be training us this hard if they didn't think we could handle more, you say, because the Empire needs soldiers who can think as well as fight, because, you pause, looking around at faces that have become familiar in just 2 days, because we didn't come this far to be ordinary. Con raises his water cup. To be extraordinary then, to survive long enough to find out, Eric adds with a grin. 20 cups rise together, 20 voices echo the toast. But what you don't know, what none of you can know yet, is that every word of this conversation is being reported to higher authorities. The Byzantine Empire doesn't trust anyone completely, especially not foreign recruits with unknown loyalties. Tomorrow morning, those reports will land on the desk of someone very important, someone who's been watching the progress of promising new soldiers with great interest, someone who's about to make a decision that will accelerate your path toward the Varangian Guard, and that's when the real tests will begin.
3 weeks into training, you discover that someone has been watching you. It happens during mounted combat practice. Most terrifying thing you've experienced since leaving Norway. Byzantine war horses are bigger than anything you've ever seen, trained to fight as aggressively as their riders. Your horse, a massive black stallion named Thunder, seems to take personal offense at your attempts to stay in the saddle while wielding weapons. Relax, Sergeant Basil shouts from the ground. The horse can smell your fear, makes him nervous. Easy for him to say. He's not 8 feet off the ground on an animal that weighs more than 3 Norwegian ponies combined. You're practicing sword work from horseback, that's hitting targets, while Thunder gallops along a course lined with wooden posts. It requires balance, timing, and a complete disregard for personal safety. So far, you've managed to hit 2 targets out of 12 attempts. Better, Basil calls as you wheel Thunder around for another pass. But you're still thinking like an infantryman. Stop gripping with your legs. Trust the saddle. On your next run, something clicks. Instead of fighting Thunder's movement, you start moving with him. Your sword connects with 3 targets in a row, each strike clean and solid. Much better. Basil grins. See, you're not passengers on these horses. You're partners. That's when you notice him. A man standing in the shadow of the stable building, watching the training with intense interest. Not a recruit, his clothes are too fine. Not a regular instructor. He has an air of authority that even Sergeant Basil lacks. He's maybe 40 years old, average height, with the kind of lean build that comes from a lifetime of physical training. His hair is going grey at the temples, and a thin scar runs along his jawline. But it's his eyes that catch your attention. Sharp, calculating, missing nothing. When he realizes you've spotted him, he doesn't look away, or pretend to be doing something else. He just nods once, as if acknowledging that you're observant enough to notice being watched. Then he turns and walks away. Who was that? You ask Con during the evening meal. Con follows your gaze toward the empty space where the man had been standing. Who was who? The man watching training today. Grey hair, scar on his jaw. Con shakes his head. Didn't see anyone like that. You sure you weren't imagining things? Sometimes the heat gets to people, but you weren't imagining it. And over the next few days you see him again. Always at a distance, always watching, never interfering with training, but clearly interested in something. or someone. The fourth time you spot him, you're in the middle of a particularly brutal sparring session. Sergeant Basil has paired you against Komnenos, who's turned out to be possibly the best natural fighter in your training group. He's fast, strong, and has an uncanny ability to read your attacks before you make them. You circle each other with wooden swords, looking for openings. Komnenos attacks high, you block and counter low. He sidesteps, brings his sword around in an arc that would take your head off if it connected with steel. But you're not the same fighter you were 3 weeks ago. Byzantine training has sharpened your reflexes, improved your technique, taught you to think 3 moves ahead instead of just reacting. You catch his blade on your shield, step inside his guard, and place the point of your sword against his throat. Yield, he says with a grin. Good, Basil calls. Both of you. Komnenos, you're telegraphing your overhead strikes. Fix that, Harald. Nice work on the counter, but you left your left side open. In real combat, his backup would have spared you. As you reset for another round, you glance toward the spot where you've been seeing the mysterious watcher. He's there again. But this time, he's not alone. A second man stands beside him, older with a magnificent beard and clothes that practically scream, important official. They're having what looks like an intense conversation, occasionally gesturing toward the training yard, toward you. Your distraction costs you. Komnenos' practice sword catches you in the ribs hard enough to double you over. Focus, Basil snaps. Dead men don't get to wonder about spectators. But it's hard to focus when you're increasingly certain that you're being evaluated for something beyond basic training. That evening you decide to do something that's either very smart or very stupid. Instead of heading straight to the barracks after dinner, you take a detour through the administrative section of the military complex. It's a maze of offices and meeting rooms where officers handle the paperwork that keeps the army running. You're not supposed to be here. Recruits have specific areas they're allowed to access, and this isn't one of them. But you need answers. You're walking past a doorway when you hear familiar voices inside. The grey-haired watcher and his bearded companion, speaking in rapid Greek. Your Greek has improved dramatically over the past month, but they're talking fast and using military terminology you don't recognize. You catch fragments, promising candidates, recommendations from Magnus. Accelerated program. Too early to tell. Then the grey-haired man says something that makes your blood freeze. The Norwegian shows potential, but potential isn't enough. We need to know if he can handle the pressure. The bearded man responds, arrange a test. Something that will show us what he's really made of. What kind of test? Real combat. Not training. Not sparring. The kind where mistakes get you killed. Your heart pounds so loud you're sure they'll hear it through the stone walls. Real combat. You've been training for 3 weeks. You're nowhere near ready for actual fighting. Are you? Footsteps approach the door. You turn and walk away as quickly as you can without running, trying to look like you have legitimate business in this section of the complex. Back in the barracks, you lie on your narrow bunk and stare at the ceiling. Around you, other recruits are already asleep, exhausted from another day of brutal training. But sleep doesn't come easily tonight. Someone important is watching you, evaluating you, planning to test you in ways that sound distinctly dangerous. The smart thing would be to keep your head down, focus on basic training, not draw any additional attention to yourself. But you didn't come to Constantinople to be smart. You came to be extraordinary. And extraordinary people, you're beginning to understand, don't get to choose when they're tested. They just have to be ready when the test comes. As you finally drift off to sleep, one thought echoes in your mind. Tomorrow could be the day that changes everything. Again. But what you don't know, what you can't know, is that the grey-haired man is Captain Stephanos, head of Varangian Guard recruitment. The bearded man is General Botanades, military advisor to the Emperor himself, and the test they're planning isn't just about your fighting skills. It's about whether you have what it takes to keep state secrets that could topple empires, the kind of secrets that members of the Varangian Guard carry to their graves. The test comes at dawn, disguised as a routine patrol. Special assignment, Sergeant Basil announces, pulling you aside before morning formation. You and 3 others. Real mission, not training. Your stomach drops. After overhearing that conversation last night, you know this isn't a coincidence. What kind of mission, Sergeant? Escort duty. A Byzantine merchant needs protection for a trading run to the docks. Basil's expression gives nothing away. Simple work. It should be boring. Nothing in Constantinople is ever boring, and nothing involving you lately has been simple. The other recruits chosen are Komnenos, and surprisingly, one of the Danish twins, Eirik. All the best fighters from your training group. Either this is a reward for good performance, or someone wants to see how you handle real pressure. You strongly suspect the latter. An hour later, you're standing outside a warehouse near the harbor wearing actual armor for the first time. Not the practice gear you've been training in, but real Byzantine military equipment. Scale mail that weighs more than a small person, a helmet that limits your vision, and a sword sharp enough to cut through bone. The merchant is a nervous round man named Theodorus who keeps checking and rechecking the locks on several iron-bound chests. Valuable cargo, Con asks. Extremely valuable, Theodorus replies, without looking up. Silk from China, spices from India, silver from Spain. Worth more than most people see in a lifetime. Why the military escort? Eirik wonders. Don't you have your own guards? Theodorus finally looks up, and you see real fear in his eyes. My regular guards had an accident 2 days ago, very unfortunate. Com knows, and you exchange glances. What kind of accident? The kind where they ended up floating in the harbor with their throats cut. Theodorus goes back to checking his locks. Word is someone wants to intercept this shipment. Someone with enough money to hire professional killers. The pieces click into place. This isn't escort duty. This is bait. You're the bait. Sergeant, you say quietly to Basil. Shouldn't we have more men for something this dangerous? Basil gives you a look that's equal parts amusement and assessment. 4 good men should be enough. If they're really good men. The emphasis on really tells you everything you need to know. This is your test. Not just of fighting ability, but of judgment, leadership, and how you handle situations where people are actually trying to kill you. No pressure. The route to the docks winds through some of Constantinople's narrower streets, perfect for ambushes. Theodorus drives a cart pulled by 2 mules, moving slowly enough that the chests don't bounce around. You and the others walk alongside, trying to look alert without appearing paranoid. This feels wrong. Con mutters as you pass through a section where buildings lean so close together they almost touch overhead. Too quiet. He's right. The usual street noise, merchants calling out, children playing, general bustle of city life, has faded to almost nothing. Even the mules seem nervous, ears twitching at sounds you can't identify. How much further? You ask Theodorus. Maybe half a mile. We take the next left, then straight to the harbor. The next left leads into an alley barely wide enough for the cart. Buildings tower on both sides, creating a canyon of stone and shadow. Balconies and clotheslines crisscross overhead, blocking most of the sunlight. Perfect killing ground. Stop, you say suddenly. Theodorus pulls up on the reins. What's wrong? Eirik knows. Check the buildings ahead. Look for movement in windows, anything that doesn't belong. You turn to Con. Watch our rear. If someone's planning an ambush, they'll want to cut off our retreat. What about you? Con asks. You study the alley ahead, reading it like a battlefield. Narrow space limits movement. High walls provide cover for archers. Multiple doorways offer escape routes for attackers. Everything about this screams trap. I'm thinking, you say. Think faster. Eirik calls from ahead. We've got company. Men emerge from doorways like shadows taking solid form. Not many mice, maybe 8 or 10, but they move with the kind of coordination that speaks of professional training. They're dressed like laborers, but laborers don't carry swords that are well maintained or move in formation that precise. Bandits, Con asks hopefully. Assassins, Com knows corrects grimly. Look at their weapons. He's right. These aren't desperate thieves looking for easy money. These are killers who've been paid to do a job. The kind of men who don't leave witnesses. Theodorus, you say without taking your eyes off the approaching threat. How much of this cargo is actually valuable? All of it. Every piece. I swear by all the saints. Wrong answer. You've figured it out now. You're not a merchant. This isn't a trading run, and we're not really escorts. Theodorus's terrified expression shifts to something more calculating. I don't know what you mean. This is a test. The cargo is probably worthless. The assassins are probably Byzantine soldiers in disguise. And you're probably an intelligence officer seeing how we handle pressure. You finally look at him. Am I close? Theodorus stares at you for a long moment, then breaks into a grin. Closer than any recruit has gotten in 2 years. The approaching assassins stop advancing. One of them, a tall man with professional scars, calls out in perfect Greek. Do we continue the exercise, or has the candidate figured it out completely? Continue, a new voice says from behind you. You turn to see Captain Stephanos, the grey-haired watcher, emerging from a building you could have sworn was empty. He's wearing civilian clothes, but there's no mistaking the authority in his voice. The boy shows good tactical instincts, Stephanos continues, but recognizing a test isn't the same as passing it. He nods to the assassins. Proceed as planned. The professional-looking killers draw their weapons. But something's different now. These aren't practice swords. The steel gleams with the kind of sharpness that kills people. Wait, Con says, understanding the dawning on his face. If this is a test, why are they using real weapons? Stephanos steps closer, and you see something in his eyes that makes your blood run cold. Not malice, exactly, but absolute determination. Because, he says quietly, the Varangian Guard protects the Emperor's life. We need to know, Mise, absolutely no Mise, that our recruits can function under lethal pressure. Training exercises won't tell us that. You're going to let them try to kill us. Eric's voice cracks slightly. They're going to try to hurt you, bad enough to test your resolve. Stephanos's tone is matter of fact, like he's discussing the weather. Whether they succeed depends entirely on how well you've learned your lessons. The assassins resume their advance, slowly now, giving you time to think, to plan, to make the choices that will determine whether you walk away from this alley or get carried out. Positions, you say to your companions. Formation Gamma. Remember the drills. It's one of the formations Sergeant Basil drilled into you, designed for fighting in confined spaces against superior numbers. Shield wall modified for narrow quarters, with room to maneuver and mutual support. But you've never used it when the people trying to hurt you were serious about it. Harald, Con says quietly, as you lock shields, what if we fail this test? You watch the approaching soldiers, because that's what they are. You realize now, elite Byzantine troops, probably veterans of real combat, testing recruits by trying to seriously injure them. Then we fail at fighting, you say. Ready. The first assassin reaches your shield wall at a dead run, sword aimed at the gap between your shield and Con's. But months of drill have made the movement automatic. Your shields lock tighter, the point skitters off bronze facing, and Commonose's counter-strike catches the attacker in the ribs. Not deep enough to kill, but hard enough to double him over and send him stumbling backward. Good. Stephanos calls out like he's commenting on a sporting event. Maintain formation. 2 more attackers come at you from different angles. This time you're ready. Shield work. Short sword thrusts, coordinated movement that would make Sergeant Basil proud. But these aren't training partners. They adapt, probe for weaknesses, use techniques you've never seen before. Eric goes down with a sword cut across his thigh. Not life-threatening, but enough to break the formation. Suddenly you're fighting as individuals instead of a unit. That's when things get dangerous. A bearded attacker with arms like tree trunks comes straight at you, sword raised for an overhead strike that would split your skull if it connected. You catch it on your shield, but the impact drives you to one knee. He raises his sword again. This time, you won't be fast enough to block. That's when something unexpected happens. Time slows down. Not magically. You're not in some saga where gods intervene. But your mind accelerates, processing information faster than you knew was possible. The attacker's weight is on his front foot. His guard is high, leaving his torso exposed. He's expecting you to try to block again, not counterattack. You don't block. Instead, you drive your shoulder into his midsection, using his own momentum against him. He goes down hard, sword clattering away across the stone. When you look up, the fighting has stopped. All the assassins are down, or backing away. Eric is sitting against a wall, field medic working on his leg wound. Con and Commonos are breathing hard but grinning. And Captain Stephanos is looking at you with something that might be approved. Interesting, he says. Very interesting indeed. Did we pass, you ask, pulling off your helmet. Stephanos doesn't answer directly. Instead he asks, what did you learn from this exercise? You think about it, about the fear, the confusion, the moment when everything clicked into focus. That real combat is different from training, you say finally. That thinking under pressure is as important as fighting skill, and that, you pause, looking at your companions, that we work better as a team than as individuals, and that the Varangian Guard doesn't just want good fighters, they want people who can make life and death decisions when there's no time to ask for orders. Stephanos nods slowly. Report to advanced training tomorrow. All 4 of you. He starts to walk away, then turns back. Oh, and Harald. Yes, sir. Next time you figure out it's a test, keep it to yourself until after you pass it. Shows better judgment. As the group disperses and medics tend to Eric's wound, you realize something important has just happened. You didn't just pass a test. You caught the attention of people who matter in this empire. And that, you're beginning to understand, can be either the best thing that ever happened to you, or the most dangerous.
Advanced training takes place in a part of the military complex you didn't know existed. Captain Stephanos leads you through a series of corridors that seem to burrow deeper into the heart of Constantinople's power structure. The walls here are decorated with mosaics showing Byzantine victories from across the centuries, soldiers in gleaming armor, conquering cities whose names you can't pronounce. This section is restricted, Stephanos explains as guards nod respectfully and step aside. Only candidates for specialist units train here. What you see and hear from this point forward is considered state secret. State secret. The words send a thrill through you that has nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the realization that you're being trusted with something important. The training facility itself is unlike anything you've experienced. Instead of the open yards where regular recruits practice, this is a complex of specialized rooms. Combat chambers with different types of flooring, sand, stone, wood to simulate various fighting conditions, weapons rooms containing arms you've never seen before, and strangest of all, a room full of books. Reading room, Stephanos says, noticing your surprise. Guardsmen need to understand more than just sword work, languages, politics, protocol. The Emperor's protectors must be scholars as well as warriors. Your new instructor is a woman. This alone is enough to make you stop and stare. In Norway, women fought occasionally. Shield maidens were part of legend and sometimes reality. But you've never seen a woman in a position of military authority. Anna Komnenos. She shares the imperial family name, though she explains she's a distant cousin. Cousins is maybe 30 years old, with intelligent dark eyes, and the kind of presence that makes you stand straighter without being told. She wears practical clothes rather than armor, but the sword at her side is clearly well used. Advanced combat training, she announces to your group of 12 candidates, is about more than learning new techniques. It's about understanding why techniques work, when to use them, and how to adapt when your enemy does something unexpected. The 12 candidates include you, Con,
Komnenos, and Eric Minz's leg wound, healed enough for training, but still tender. The others are a mix of soldiers promoted from regular units, each one clearly exceptional in some way. First lesson, Anna continues. Forget everything you think you know about Byzantine military doctrine. Con raises his hand tentatively. Ma'am, we've spent months learning Byzantine doctrine. Anna smiles. You've learned what we teach regular soldiers: formation fighting, siege warfare, standard cavalry tactics, all useful for conventional military operations. She pauses. The Varangian Guard doesn't engage in conventional military operations. She leads you to a sand-floored chamber where weapons racks line the walls. But these aren't the standard issue swords and spears you've been training with. These are specialized tools, curved blades, weighted chains, weapons with multiple points and edges. Palace security presents unique challenges. Anna explains, selecting a weapon that looks like a cross between a mace and a dagger. Enclosed spaces, civilian populations, political considerations. You can't always solve problems by charging in formation. She demonstrates with movements so fluid they look like a deadly dance. The strange weapon spins and strikes in patterns that would be impossible to predict or block using conventional sword techniques. Sometimes, she continues, you need to disable an attacker without killing them. Sometimes you need to fight in a crowded throne room without injuring innocent bystanders. Sometimes you need to eliminate a threat so quietly that people 10 feet away don't notice. The training that follows is unlike anything you've experienced. You learn to fight with weapons designed for specific situations, how to subdue without killing, how to kill without making noise, how to read body language and spot potential threats in crowds. But it's not just combat skills. Politics, Anna announces one afternoon, leading you to the book-filled room. More dangerous than any weapon you'll ever face. The lesson that follows is a revelation. Anna explains the complex web of relationships that govern Byzantine court life, which noble families are allied with which, how seemingly innocent conversations can contain deadly implications, why a guardsman must understand not just who to protect the emperor from, but who to protect the emperor's secrets from. The empire has enemies within as well as without, she explains. Nobles who think they could rule better than the current emperor, generals who believe they deserve more power, foreign ambassadors who gather intelligence while pretending to negotiate trade agreements. You raise your hand. How do we know who to trust? Simple, Anna replies. You trust no one completely except other guardsmen, and even then you verify everything. It sounds paranoid, but the more you learn about Byzantine politics, the more necessary this caution appears. The empire is a maze of competing interests, where today's ally could be tomorrow's assassin. But surely, Eric says, the emperor himself is above all this scheming. Anna's expression grows serious. The emperor is the primary target of all this scheming. Every decision he makes affects the wealth and power of hundreds of noble families. Every policy change creates winners and losers. Every marriage alliance or military appointment shifts the balance of court politics. She shows you documents, carefully redacted training materials, but still revealing. Assassination attempts from the past decade, coup plots that were discovered and stopped, intelligence reports about foreign agents operating in the capital. This is why the Varangian Guard exists. Anna continues. Byzantine nobles might betray a Byzantine emperor for their own advancement, but foreign warriors, properly motivated and thoroughly vetted, have no stake in domestic politics. What motivates us? Anna smiles. Gold. Lots of gold. More than any of you ever imagined possible. She produces a ledger and opens it to a page covered with numbers. Standard guardsman salary, 50 gold solits per year, plus bonuses for special assignments, plus a share of any treasure captured during military campaigns, plus retirement benefits that amount to more wealth than most merchants accumulate in a lifetime. The numbers are staggering. 50 gold solidi would make you wealthy by Norwegian standards, and that's just the base salary. But remember, Anna warns, you earn every coin. Guardsmen work every day. No holidays, no leave unless specifically authorized. You live in the palace, eat palace food, wear palace uniforms. Your life belongs to the emperor. For how long, you ask? Minimum term is 10 years. Most guardsmen serve 15 to 20 years, then return home rich enough to buy estates. She closes the ledger. Some choose to stay permanently. The empire always needs experienced soldiers in administrative positions. That evening, back in the barracks, which are significantly more comfortable than basic training accommodations, you lie on your bed, thinking about everything you've learned. The wealth alone is mind-boggling. Even the minimum salary would make you one of the richest men in Norway. But it's more than just money. It's the opportunity to be part of something important, to stand at the center of the most powerful empire on earth, and help shape its destiny. Think we'll make it? Con asks from the next bed. Some of us will, you reply, echoing what you said months ago. Maybe not all, but some. The competition's getting stiffer. Eric observes, half these candidates have years of combat experience. True, you're no longer competing just against other recruits. Some of your fellow candidates are veterans of campaigns in Italy, Syria, the Danube frontier. Men who've seen real war, not just training exercises. Experience helps, Comnenus says thoughtfully, but it's not everything. Anna keeps emphasizing adaptability, thinking on your feet, making good decisions under pressure. Like during the alley test, you add, exactly. Technical skill is important, but judgment matters more. You think about that as you drift towards sleep. Judgment, the ability to read situations correctly and respond appropriately, to understand not just what's happening, but why it's happening and what it means. It's a different kind of intelligence than pure fighting ability. And perhaps, you realize, it's the kind of intelligence that separates good soldiers from great ones. Outside, Constantinople settles into its nighttime rhythm, but the city never truly sleeps. Somewhere in the vast palace complex, the emperor is making decisions that will affect millions of people. Guards are walking their roads, protecting the heart of an empire that stretches from Italy to the Holy Land. Tomorrow you'll continue learning how to become one of those guards, how to be trusted with state secrets and imperial safety, how to earn the kind of wealth that could transform not just your life, but the lives of everyone you'll ever care about. You're no longer just a Norwegian refugee running from a failed battle. You're becoming something new, something important, something that would make your brother proud, if he could see you now. The thought brings a bittersweet smile as sleep finally claims you. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new lessons, new opportunities to prove yourself worthy of the trust being placed in you. But tonight, for the first time since that terrible night in the Norwegian forest, you feel like you're exactly where you belong.
3 months into advanced training, you discover that words can be deadlier than swords. The lesson takes place in what Anna calls the simulation chamber, a room decorated to look like a smaller version of the imperial throne room. Golden walls, marble floors, and enough luxury to make your eyes water. But it's not the decor that makes this lesson memorable, it's the mistake that nearly gets you killed. Today we practiced court protocol, Anna announces. Specifically, how to interact with imperial family members and high nobles without causing a diplomatic incident. She's dressed differently today. Silk robes instead of practical training clothes, jewelry that catches the light, hair arranged in the complex style favored by Byzantine nobility. The transformation is so complete that you barely recognize the woman who's been teaching you knife-fighting techniques. I am now Empress Zoe, she announces in a different voice, higher, more musical, with the kind of accent that screams aristocratic breeding. You are guardsmen on duty during a formal reception. Your task is to provide security while remaining appropriately invisible. The exercise seems straightforward. Stand at attention, watch for threats, don't interfere with the social interactions unless absolutely necessary. How hard could it be? Very hard, as it turns out. Remember, Anna continues in character, I am the Emperor's aunt, third most powerful person in the empire. My word can elevate commoners to noble rank, or send nobles into exile. She fixes you with a stare that somehow manages to be both imperious and bored. How you interact with me will be reported directly to my nephew.
The first part goes well. You and your fellow candidates position yourselves around the room's perimeter, trying to look alert but unobtrusive. Anna plays her role perfectly. A noble woman holding court, receiving imaginary visitors, discussing imaginary policies in a voice that carries just far enough to test whether you're listening. That's where the trouble starts. She begins discussing what sounds like a plot against the emperor. Nothing obvious, just hints and suggestions woven into casual conversation about court gossip. But the implications are clear enough. Someone is planning something dangerous. The question is, what should a guardsman do with this information? Eric, standing near the door, starts moving closer to hear better. Anna notices immediately. "You there," she says sharply, dropping out of character for a moment. "What are you doing? I thought I heard, it sounded like..." Eric stumbles over his words. "Like what?" "Like treason," he says finally. The room goes dead silent. Anna's expression shifts from imperial boredom to something much more dangerous. "Are you," she says in a voice like winter wind, "accusing me of treason?" Eric realizes his mistake too late. In his eagerness to show that he was paying attention, he's just suggested that a member of the imperial family is plotting against the emperor. Even if it's just a training exercise, the implications are staggering. No, I didn't mean," he stammers. "Because," Anna continues relentlessly, "the penalty for falsely accusing an imperial family member of treason is death. Slow, public, extremely unpleasant death." She lets that hang in the air for a moment, before breaking character completely. "And that," she says in her normal voice, "is why guardsmen must understand court protocol." "Eric, what should you have done?" Eric looks miserable. "I don't know. Anyone else?" You raise your hand tentatively, noted the conversation privately, then reported it through proper channels after your shift. Better, but still potentially dangerous. What if I really was plotting treason? What if reporting it got back to me through those same channels? Anna shakes her head. This is why the Varangian Guard has its own intelligence network, its own methods for verifying information. She explains the delicate balance that guardsmen must maintain, alert enough to detect real threats, but politically sophisticated enough to avoid creating diplomatic disasters, loyal to the emperor, but careful not to overstep their authority. Remember, she emphasizes, you're foreigners in a Byzantine court. You don't fully understand the cultural nuances. You don't know which apparent enemies are actually allies, which apparent allies are actually enemies. When in doubt, observe and report. Don't act. The lesson continues with increasingly complex scenarios. How to handle a drunk ambassador who makes inappropriate advances toward palace staff. What to do when one noble challenges another to a duel in the emperor's presence. How to respond when someone offers you a bribe. That last one surprises everyone. You'll be offered bribes, Anna says matter-of-factly, constantly. Not just money, though there will be plenty of that. Information, influence, sexual favors, promises of advancement. People will try to corrupt you in ways you haven't imagined yet. How do we handle it? Komnenos asks. Depends on the situation. Sometimes you report it immediately. Sometimes you pretend to be interested to see how far they'll go. Sometimes you take the bribe and report that too. Anna's smile is distinctly predatory. Corruption attempts tell us a lot about who's planning what. You want us to take bribes. Con sounds shocked. I want you to serve the empire's interests. Sometimes that means appearing to be corrupt while actually gathering intelligence. Anna's expression grows serious. But make no mistake, actually being corrupt will get you killed. The empire has no patience for guardsmen who put personal gain above imperial security. The afternoon's final exercise is the most challenging yet. Anna plays the role of a foreign ambassador. From which country? She won't say, who's clearly fishing for information about Byzantine military capabilities. So tell me, she says to you in accented Greek, how many men does the emperor maintain in his personal guard? It seems like a harmless question, but you remember the morning's lessons about information security. I'm not qualified to discuss military matters, Your Excellency, you reply carefully. Oh, surely a rough number. I'm simply making conversation. I suggest you speak with the appropriate officials if you need information about imperial military organization. Anna keeps pushing, making the questions seem increasingly innocent while actually probing for details that could be used to plan an attack on the palace. How many guards are on duty at night? Which entrances are most heavily defended? How do shift changes work? You deflect each question politely but firmly, giving away nothing useful while maintaining diplomatic courtesy. Excellent, Anna says, dropping the ambassador act. Perfect balance of friendliness and security consciousness. That's exactly how such conversations should be handled. As the day's training ends, you're struck by how much more complex this job is than you originally imagined. It's not just about being a good fighter. It's about understanding politics, reading people, making split-second decisions that could affect the stability of an empire. Questions, Anna asks, as you prepare to leave. How long, you ask, does it take to really understand all this? The politics, the protocol, the intelligence work. Anna considers the question seriously. Years, maybe decades. The Byzantine Empire has been perfecting the art of statecraft for 8 centuries. You'll spend your entire career learning new aspects of how power really works. Is it worth it? That depends on what you value. If you want a simple life, no. If you want to be part of something greater than yourself, if you want to help preserve civilization itself, she shrugs, then yes, absolutely worth it. That evening, you sit in the advanced training barracks writing a letter home. Not to send minus foreign correspondence is monitored, but to organize your thoughts about how much your life has changed. Dear brother, you write, if you could see me now, you might not recognize the boy who ran from that Norwegian forest. I'm learning to be something I never imagined possible. Not just a warrior, but a guardian of secrets that could reshape the world. The wealth they offer is beyond anything we dreamed of in our northern halls. But more than that, they're offering the chance to stand at the center of the greatest empire ever created, to be trusted with power that kings would envy. I think you'd be proud. I hope you'd understand why I chose this path. You don't finish the letter. Some thoughts are too complex for words, even imaginary words to a dead brother. But as you drift towards sleep, you realize something important. You're not just becoming a Byzantine soldier. You're becoming someone who could return to Norway. Not just wealthy but wise. Someone who understands how the world really works. Someone who could perhaps be more than just the last son of a failed king.
The summons comes on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a eunuch, whose silk robes probably cost more than a Norwegian farm. You're in the middle of weapons practice, learning to fight with a curved blade that requires completely different techniques than straight swords when the messenger appears. He doesn't interrupt the session, just stands at the edge of the training area with the kind of patience that suggests he's used to waiting for important people. Anna notices him immediately and calls a halt to training. Advanced candidate Harald Sigurdsson, the eunuch announces in a voice like honey over steel, you are requested to attend upon His Excellence, Captain of the Varangian Guard, at the 3rd hour after noon, Palace of Blackenay, Tower of the Guard. Requested. As if you had a choice. Today? You ask. Today? The eunuch's expression suggests that questioning the timing is somewhere between foolish and dangerous. You will be escorted. After he glides away, there's no other word for how he moves. Anna pulls you aside. This is it, she says quietly. Final selection. Either you're about to become a member of the most elite military unit in the world, or you're about to be politely thanked for your service and assigned to a frontier garrison. Your stomach does something complicated. 6 months of training, countless tests, that terrifying exercise in the alley, all leading to this moment. Any advice? Anna considers, be yourself, but be the best version of yourself. And remember Maeve, if they've called you for final selection, they already think you have potential. Don't second-guess everything you've learned. 2 hours later, you're walking through parts of the palace complex you've never seen before. Your escort is a current guardsman,
a tall, scarred man named Ragnar, who speaks Norse with a Swedish accent and wears the kind of casual confidence that comes from years of being very good at very dangerous work. Nervous? He asks, as you climb a spiral staircase that seems to go on forever. Terrified, you admit. Ragnar grins. Good means you understand what's at stake. He pauses at a landing to let you catch your breath. Mind if I ask why you want this? The guard, I mean. Most candidates give some speech about serving the empire or protecting civilization. What's your real reason? You think about that. About the long journey from Norway, the training, everything you've learned about yourself and the world. Because I want to be someone who matters, you say finally. I want to make decisions that affect more than just my own life. And, you pause, surprised by your own honesty. Because I want to go home someday wealthy enough to buy everything my brother ever dreamed of. Ragnar nods approvingly. Honest. I like that. Captain Palaiologos appreciates honesty too. The Tower of the Guard turns out to be exactly what it sounds like. A circular stone tower that offers commanding views of Constantinople and the surrounding waters. The office at the top is surprisingly modest. A simple desk, military maps on the walls, weapons displayed more for function than decoration. Captain Palaiologos himself is not what you expected. He's maybe 50 years old, medium height, with graying hair and the kind of weathered face that comes from decades of outdoor work. No elaborate uniform, no obvious displays of wealth or power. He looks like a competent sergeant who happens to be sitting behind a very important desk. Harald Sigurdsson, he says, consulting a thick file, son of Sigurdsay, half-brother to the late King Olaf of Norway. Age 16, training scores consistently above average, demonstrates good tactical instincts and unusual political awareness for someone so young. He looks up from the file. His eyes are pale blue, the kind that seem to see more than they reveal. Tell me about Stiklestad. The question hits like a physical blow. You haven't talked about that battle, really talked about it, since arriving in Constantinople. My brother died trying to reclaim his throne. You say carefully. The battle went badly from the start. Superior enemy numbers, better position. Some of our allies switched sides during the fighting. You were there, on the edges. I was supposed to stay with the supply wagons, but I saw enough. The memories come flooding back. The sound of axes on shields, the smell of blood and fear, the moment when everything fell apart. We lost because we underestimated our enemies and overestimated our friends. What did you learn from it? That's a more complex question than it appears. You think about the months of travel that followed, the training, everything you've discovered about strategy and politics since that terrible day. That courage without intelligence gets you killed. That having the right cause doesn't guarantee victory. That, you pause, choosing words carefully. That understanding your enemies is more important than hating them. Captain Palaiologos makes a note. Ragnar says you told him you want to go home wealthy. Nothing wrong with that. We all serve for pay. But wealth alone won't sustain you through what this job requires. What else motivates you? You consider lying, giving the answer you think he wants to hear. But Ragnar was right about honesty being valued here. I want to understand how power really works, you say. In Norway, kings rule because of bloodlines and battle prowess. Here, it's more complex. You've built something that lasts beyond individual rulers. I want to learn how that's possible. And then maybe I can help build something similar in the north. Something more stable than endless cycles of conquest and revenge. The captain studies you for a long moment. Then he asks a question that seems to come from nowhere. Do you know why the Varangian Guard was created? To protect the emperor with troops who have no local political loyalties. Partly. But there's more. Palaiologos stands and walks to the window, gazing out over the city. The empire has enemies everywhere. Some obvious Arabs to the east, Bulgars to the north, Normans in Italy. Others less obvious, ambitious generals, corrupt nobles, foreign agents operating within our borders. He turns back to face you. Traditional Byzantine troops are excellent soldiers, but they're also Byzantine citizens. They have families here, property here. connections that can be exploited. A general might betray the emperor if promised greater wealth or power. A common soldier might be bribed to look the other way at the wrong moment. But foreign troops have only what the empire gives them. Their loyalty can be bought, but it's bought honestly, with gold and opportunity rather than political promises. His smile is thin but not unkind. We're mercenaries, Harald, very well paid, extremely professional mercenaries, never forget that. He returns to his desk and pulls out a different file. If you accept this position, and I'm offering it to you, you'll take an oath that binds you for 10 years minimum. You'll live in the palace, eat palace food, wear palace uniforms. Your personal life will be monitored. Your correspondence will be read. Your associates will be investigated. In exchange, you'll be paid more than most men see in a lifetime. You'll have access to the imperial court, which means opportunities for additional income through legitimate means. You'll be trained in skills that no other military organization can teach. And when your service ends, you'll leave with enough wealth to live like a king anywhere in the known world. He slides a document across the desk. Standard guardsman contract. Take time to read it, if you need to. You pick up the parchment. The terms are written in formal Greek that's just at the edge of your comprehension, but the numbers are clear enough. Base salary that would make you wealthy by Norwegian standards. Performance bonuses that could double or triple that amount. Retirement benefits that seem almost too good to be true. The other candidates from my training group, Eric and Komnenos, are being offered positions in specialized units, not the guard itself, but elite formations with excellent prospects. Your friend Con, Palaiologos, pauses. Con is a good soldier, but he lacks the political instincts we require. He's being transferred to the Italian command. Honorable position, good career prospects, just not here. Poor Con. But you understand the logic. The Varangian Guard operates in an environment where political awareness can be literally a matter of life and death. How long do I have to decide? You don't. Palaiologos' expression is matter of fact. This offer expires when you leave this room. Either you want it, or you don't. 10 years. 10 years of your life in service to a foreign emperor, learning skills and accumulating wealth beyond anything you ever imagined possible. 10 years of standing at the center of the most powerful empire on earth. 10 years that could transform you from a Norwegian refugee into someone who could reshape the North itself. You pick up the pen he offers. Where do I sign? Palaiologos smiles. The first genuine smile you've seen from him. Welcome to the Varangian Guard, Harald Sigurdsson. Your real education begins tomorrow. As you sign your name to the contract that will determine the next decade of your life, you realize something profound has just happened. You're no longer just a young man seeking his fortune. You're about to become a keeper of imperial secrets, a guardian of the most powerful ruler on earth. And mandate, if you play your cards right, one of the wealthiest men ever to return to the frozen north. The boy who ran through that Norwegian forest is gone forever. In his place stands someone who could perhaps change the world. The oath-taking ceremony happens at dawn, in a chapel so beautiful it makes your eyes water. You stand with 11 other new guardsmen in the Nya Ecclesia, the new church within the palace complex. The walls are covered in mosaics that tell the story of the empire, Constantine founding the city, Justinian building Hagia Sophia, armies conquering lands from Britain to Persia. But it's not the artwork that takes your breath away, it's gold. Everything that can be covered in gold has been covered in gold. The altar, the candlesticks, even the chains holding the incense burners. The morning light, filtering through windows made of colored glass, turns the entire space into something that belongs more in heaven than on earth. Impressive, isn't it? Whispers the man standing next to you. His name is John Chrysilios, a former Byzantine noble who chose military service over court politics. Wait until you see the main palace. Captain Palaiologos stands before the altar, wearing full ceremonial armor that probably weighs more than you do. Beside him, a priest in robes so magnificent, They could fund a small army. Begins the ceremony with prayers in Greek, so formal you catch maybe half the words. But you understand the meaning well enough. You're about to swear an oath that will bind your life to the service of the empire and emperor. Step forward, the priest commands. You and your fellow recruits move to kneel before the altar. The marble floor is cold against your knees, even through your ceremonial uniform. Everything about this moment is designed to emphasize the solemnity of what you're undertaking. Do you swear? The priest begins, by the Holy Trinity, by the Virgin Mary, by all the saints and martyrs, to serve the Roman Emperor faithfully and without reservation. We swear. 12 voices respond in unison. Do you swear to protect the Emperor's person, the Emperor's family, and the Emperor's legitimate interests, even unto death? We swear. Do you swear to keep the secrets entrusted to you, to speak truth to your commanders, and to place the Empire's welfare above your own personal gain? That last part gives you a moment's pause. Personal gain is a large part of why you're here. But you understand the intent. The Empire's welfare comes first, your personal advancement second. We swear. The formal oaths continue for what feels like hours, promises to obey lawful orders, to maintain discipline, to honor the traditions of the Guard. Each oath is sealed with responses that echo through the golden chapel like thunder. Finally, Captain Palaiologos steps forward. Rise, guardsmen of the Emperor. You stand and immediately notice a difference. The way the other palace officials look at you has changed. Yesterday you were a promising candidate. Today you're a member of the most elite military unit in the known world. Your first assignment, Palaiologos continues, begins immediately. Palace duty, rotating shifts, learning the routines that keep the Emperor safe. He pauses, his pale eyes scanning the group. Remember, you are now privy to information that could topple kingdoms. Act accordingly. After the ceremony, John Chrysilios offers to show you around the palace complex. What you see defies every assumption you ever had about wealth and power. The corridors alone are wider than most Norwegian great halls, with ceilings so high they disappear into shadow. Marble pillars hold up roofs covered in mosaics depicting Christ, the Virgin Mary, and various saints blessing the imperial family. Every door is made of wood, so fine it looks like it was carved by angels. This is the Chrysotraklinos, John says, leading you into a hall that makes Hagia Sophia look modest. The main throne room. The throne itself sits on a raised platform at the far end of the hall, approached by steps made of porphyry, purple stone so rare that only the Emperor is allowed to use it. The throne is made of gold and precious stones, but it's not the materials that impress you, it's engineering. Watch this, John says, activating some kind of mechanism. The throne rises into the air on hidden hydraulics, while mechanical birds in golden trees begin to sing with voices so realistic you look around for real birds. Lions made of gold and silver roar with sounds that echo through the hall. Invented by court engineers, John explains with obvious pride. Designed to impress foreign ambassadors, works every time. You walk through garden courtyards where exotic animals roam freely. Peacocks from India, lions from Africa, creatures you don't have names for. Fountains spray water in patterns so complex they must require mathematics to achieve. The very air smells of flowers you've never encountered, and spices that cost more than Norwegian farms. How many people live here, you ask? Depends how you count. The imperial family, maybe 50 people. Personal servants, another few hundred. Administrative staff, court officials, guards, John shrugs. Maybe 5,000 people total. It's like a small city. A small city dedicated entirely to supporting one man and his family. The scale of it is almost incomprehensible. The Emperor's private quarters are on the next level, John continues, leading you up a staircase that's wide enough for a cavalry charge. You'll be assigned shifts there once you complete orientation. What's he like? The Emperor. John considers the question carefully. Constantine Monomachos is complex. intelligent, well-educated, politically sophisticated, but also indulgent, sometimes impulsive. He appreciates beautiful things, art, literature, women, a slight smile. The Empress Zoe manages his worst impulses fairly well. You're learning that palace life requires a delicate balance between discretion and awareness. Guardsmen need to know enough about imperial personalities to do their jobs effectively, but not so much that they become security risks themselves. Speaking of which, John adds, never repeat anything you overhear in the imperial quarters, not to other guardsmen, not to friends, not to family in letters home. Palace gossip has started wars. The afternoon brings your first actual duty assignment, standing guard outside the Emperor's private study while he meets with advisors. It sounds boring, but you quickly discover that boring doesn't apply to anything in the Imperial Palace. From your position by the door, you can hear fragments of conversation about taxes in Anatolia, military preparations for a campaign in southern Italy, negotiations with merchants from Kiev who want to establish permanent trading posts in Constantinople. Each topic represents decisions that will affect hundreds of thousands of people. The Bulgars are getting restless again, you hear one advisor report. Border raids mostly, but organized enough to suggest government backing. How many troops would we need for effective retaliation? The Emperor asks. Maybe 15,000. Plus naval support to control the Danube crossings. 15,000 troops. More soldiers than many kingdoms could field for total war, and they're discussing it like a minor administrative matter. During a brief lull in the conversation, another advisor brings up a topic that makes your ears perk up. The Varangian Guard requested permission to recruit additional personnel. Current strength is below optimal levels. How many additional men? The Emperor asks. 20, possibly 30. Captain Palaiologos recommends drawing from current advanced training candidates and possibly recruiting directly from Scandinavia. Approved. The Guard's effectiveness is too important to compromise for budgetary concerns. You're hearing decisions being made that will affect your own unit, your own career prospects. The casual way these powerful men discuss reshaping military organizations gives you a new appreciation for the scope of imperial power. Your shift ends at sunset, replaced by two other guardsmen, who nod respectfully as they take over your position. Walking back to the guard quarters, you pass through courtyards lit by torches that turn the marble architecture into something from a dream. How was your first day? Asks Ragnar, who's assigned to help new guardsmen adjust to palace life. Overwhelming, you admit. The scale of everything, the decisions being made, the casual wealth. You get used to it. It takes a few months, but you adjust. Ragnar pauses at a balcony that overlooks the harbor. Ships from dozens of countries crowd the waterfront, their cargo representing trade routes that span continents. The trick is remembering that you're part of it now, not just observing, but actually helping to protect and preserve this entire system. Does that thought ever keep you awake at night? Ragnar laughs. Only when I think about how much gold I'm earning while doing it. That night, in your new quarters, a private room with actual windows and furniture that wasn't built for punishment. You write in the journal you've been keeping since advanced training began. Day 1 as a Varangian guardsman. Took an oath that binds me for the next 10 years. Saw wealth that surpasses anything I imagined possible. Heard decisions being made that affect the fate of nations. The boy who fled Norway died today, I think. In his place stands someone who will help guard the most powerful man on earth. Someone who will accumulate wealth beyond the dreams of Norwegian kings. Someone who might, someday, return home with enough gold to buy kingdoms. You close the journal and prepare for sleep, but rest doesn't come easily. Your mind keeps returning to the Golden Throne Room. The casual discussions of armies and territories, the sheer scope of the empire you now serve. Tomorrow will bring new assignments, new responsibilities, new opportunities to prove yourself worthy of the trust being placed in you. But tonight you're content to lie in a comfortable bed in the most magnificent palace ever built, knowing that your real adventure, the one that will make you wealthy beyond imagination, is just beginning. The oath you swore today will transform you from a Norwegian exile into one of the richest men who ever lived. You just don't know it yet.
Your first real mission comes 3 months later, and it changes everything you thought you knew about wealth. The assignment seems routine enough when Captain Palaiologos briefs your unit. A trading expedition to southern Italy needs military escort Byzantine merchants carrying silk and spices to exchange for Western goods. Standard protection duty, the kind of mission that builds experience without excessive risk. Why guardsmen? Asks Marcus, a veteran who served 8 years. Regular troops could handle merchant protection. Palaiologos' smile suggests there's more to this mission than he's revealed, because these aren't ordinary merchants, and this isn't ordinary cargo. The truth emerges when you meet the expedition leader at Constantinople's main harbour. Kallinikos is technically a merchant, but he carries himself like a general and speaks with the kind of authority that comes from imperial backing. His ships, 3 massive vessels that dwarf everything else in the harbour, are loaded with cargo that makes your eyes widen. Holy Mary, whispers Thomas, a guardsman from England. Look at those silk bales. Each bale is worth more than a Norwegian farm, and there are hundreds of them, stacked in the ship's holds like common grain. But silk isn't the cargo that makes this mission special. The real treasure is in the sealed compartments. Kallinikos explains during the pre-departure briefing. Imperial gifts for the Prince of Salerno, gold, silver, precious stones, artwork that took court artisans years to create. How much gold, you ask? Kallinikos considers the question. Enough to buy a small kingdom. Which, in a sense, is exactly what we're doing. The political situation in southern Italy is complex. Norman adventurers carving out territories, Byzantine forces trying to maintain imperial control, local princes playing all sides for maximum advantage. The expedition's real purpose is to secure Prince Gisulf's continued loyalty with gifts so magnificent, he won't dare switch sides. Your job, Kallinikos continues, is to ensure these gifts reach their destination. Pirates, bandits and Norman raiders would all love to intercept this cargo. The journey south takes 2 weeks, following trade routes that have connected Constantinople to the Western Mediterranean for centuries. You've never seen the empire from this perspective, not as a collection of territories on maps, but as a living network of commerce and diplomacy that spans continents. The ships themselves are marvels of engineering, triple-masted vessels with innovations you've never seen. Manda compass devices that point north regardless of weather, charts that show water depths and wind patterns, cargo holds designed to keep goods dry even in rough seas. Byzantine shipbuilding, explains Stephanos, the expedition's naval commander. Best in the world, these ships could sail to Britain if necessary. Your fellow guardsmen include some of the unit's most experienced members. Marcus, who's fought in campaigns from Syria to the Danube. Olaf Haraldsson, a distant cousin from Norway, who joined the Guard 5 years ago. John Chrysilios, whose knowledge of Italian politics proves invaluable as you approach your destination. Tell me about Prince Gisulf, you ask John during a quiet evening watch. Clever, ambitious, completely unreliable, John replies cheerfully. He's betrayed allies so many times that betrayal is practically his governing philosophy. But he controls the territory we need, and his port is crucial for our Italian operations. So we're bribing him to stay loyal. We're investing in a partnership that benefits both parties, John corrects diplomatically. Much more civilized than conquest. The first sign of trouble comes when you're 2 days out from Salerno. Pirates. Not desperate raiders in small boats, but a professional fleet that's been waiting for exactly this kind of target. 6 ships, well armed and obviously experienced in intercepting merchant vessels. Battle stations, Kallinikos orders calmly. What follows isn't the chaotic melee you expected. This is Byzantine naval warfare. Coordinated, disciplined, devastatingly effective. Your ship's crews work with the precision of master craftsmen, using tactics perfected over centuries of Mediterranean combat. Greek fire,
the Empire's secret weapon, turns one pirate ship into a floating inferno within minutes. Coordinated ramming attacks disable two others. The remaining pirates, realizing they've bitten off more than they can chew, flee toward the horizon. Is it always that easy? You ask Marcus afterward. When do you have proper equipment and training? Usually, Marcus cleans his sword with the casual efficiency of long practice. Pirates prey on weakness, show strength, and most of them find easier targets. But the real revelation comes when you reach Salerno and see Prince Gisulf's reaction to the imperial gifts. The prince is a small, nervous man, who clearly understands that his continued independence depends entirely on Byzantine goodwill. When the gift chests are opened in his throne room, his eyes go wide with something approaching religious awe. Magnificent, he breathes, lifting a crown made of gold and sapphires. Absolutely magnificent. You watch him examine each item, silk robes that shimmer like captured starlight, jewelry that would bankrupt kingdoms, artwork so beautiful it seems impossible that human hands created it. The prince's court officials whisper among themselves in tones that mix excitement with calculation. The emperor's generosity is legendary. Gisulf says finally, "Please convey my deepest gratitude and assure His Majesty of my continued loyalty." It's pure theater, of course. The prince is being bought and everyone in the room knows it. But the gifts are so magnificent that the transaction feels less like bribery and more like tribute from one great power to a lesser one. How much was all that worth? You ask Kallinikos during the evening feast. The official value, maybe 10,000 gold solidi. Kallinikos' expression suggests the real answer is more complex. The practical value, keeping Prince Gisulf loyal for another few years, which maintains Byzantine control over southern Italian trade routes worth 10 times that amount annually. 10,000 gold solidi. More wealth than entire Norwegian kingdoms possess, spent casually to maintain political relationships in one small corner of the empire. And our share, asks Olov. Kallinikos smiles. Standard guard mission bonus. 50 gold solidi, each plus expenses. 50 gold solidi. Your entire yearly base salary, earned in 3 weeks of what was essentially a luxury cruise with one minor skirmish. That night, lying in guest quarters that are more luxurious than most Norwegian royal halls, you finally begin to understand the true scope of Byzantine wealth. What you've seen today, the casual expenditure of treasure that could fund armies, is just a routine diplomatic mission. How much gold flows through Constantinople annually? How much wealth is generated by trade routes that connect Europe, Asia, and Africa? How much can a guardsman accumulate over 10 years of missions like this? The numbers are staggering. If you're careful, if you perform well, if you take advantage of the opportunities this position offers, you could return to Norway with enough wealth to make Harald Bluetooth look like a pauper. Good mission, Marcus says from the next bed. Clean action, successful diplomacy, generous bonus. This is why men join the guard, for the gold, for the opportunity. The chance to see how the world really works, to be part of something greater than tribal warfare and farm disputes. Marcus's voice grows thoughtful. In Norway, you could spend your whole life fighting over who controls a few valleys. Here you help maintain an empire that spans continents. Sleep comes easily that night, aided by sea air and the satisfaction of a job well done. But your dreams are full of golden visions, treasure ships and palace vaults, diplomatic missions to exotic kingdoms, the gradual accumulation of wealth beyond imagination. Tomorrow you'll begin the journey back to Constantinople, carrying Prince Gisulf's formal pledges of loyalty and his own gifts for the emperor. More routine work, more opportunities to prove yourself worthy of greater responsibilities. More steps along the path that will transform you from a Norwegian refugee into the richest Viking who ever lived. The boy who ran through that dark forest seems like someone from another lifetime. In his place stands a man who guards emperors, handles diplomatic treasures, and earns more gold in a month than his ancestors saw in decades. And this is just the beginning. Your real adventures, the campaigns that will make you legendary, the treasure that will make you wealthy beyond dreams, still await, but tonight, rocked to sleep by Mediterranean waves and the gentle clink of gold coins in your travel chest, you rest peacefully, knowing that every day brings you closer to a destiny greater than any saga ever imagined. The last great Viking story has begun in earnest. Soon, very soon, the whole world will know the name Harald Hardrada. But for now, as Constantinople's bells ring midnight across the water, you sleep the deep, contented sleep of a man who has found his true calling. Rest well, future king. History dreams alongside you. The ship rocks gently back toward Constantinople, back toward the golden city that has become your home. You drift between sleeping and waking, listening to the soft sounds of water against the hull, feeling the Mediterranean breeze carry scents of distant lands, distant adventures. In your half-dreams, you see it all stretching ahead, years of service in the most magnificent empire on earth, missions to kingdoms whose names sound like poetry, Sicily and Serbia, Bulgaria and the Holy Land. Each journey brings new treasures, new experiences, new stories to tell when you finally return north, because you will return someday, wealthy, beyond the dreams of Norwegian kings, wise in the ways of empire and diplomacy, carrying enough gold to reshape the northern world. But that's still years away, years of patient service, years of learning and growing, years of watching the sunrise over the Bosphorus, and feeling grateful for the strange fortune that brought you here. The boy who fled through that dark forest, he's gone now, transformed into something greater, something that would make his brother proud, if spirits can feel pride. Tonight you sleep on silken cushions, in quarters finer than royal halls, earning more gold in a season than most men see in lifetimes, protected by the most powerful empire ever created. Tomorrow will bring new duties, new opportunities, new chances to prove yourself worthy of the trust placed in you. But tomorrow can wait. For now, there's only the gentle rocking of the ship, the distant sound of waves, the soft breathing of fellow guardsmen who share your golden destiny. Rest comes easily when you know, truly know, that you've found your place in the world, that every challenge overcome has led to something better, something worthy of the sacrifices made to achieve it. The empire sleeps around you, 500,000 souls in the greatest city ever built, merchants and nobles, priests and soldiers, all part of the vast, magnificent machine that has preserved civilization for 8 centuries. And you're part of it now, one of the chosen few who guard its heart, who keep its secrets, who help it endure against all enemies. The gold you've earned today, it's just the beginning, a taste of the wealth that awaits those patient enough, skilled enough, loyal enough to serve the purple. Years from now, when your service is complete, you'll sail north again, but not as a refugee this time, as a man who has seen the center of the world, who has learned its deepest secrets, who carries its treasures home to share. Until then, peaceful dreams, golden dreams, dreams of the last great Viking's extraordinary life. Sleep well, history dreams alongside you.